What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog, back in standard with a Boros Warriors list. Keeping it pretty simple, straightforward today. Warriors are a pretty interesting tribe. I think they're pretty solid tribe at the moment. Not super competitive, but reasonable. And I suspect this will be Warriors will be something that is actually reasonably competitive at some point next year. That's what I'm going to be anticipating with all the party support. I imagine something from that party mechanic will help push Warriors into a pretty reasonable base. And it's already pretty solid as it is right now. So we'll just kind of go over what we're doing here today. We've got a couple copies of Selfless Savior. So obviously Warriors work extremely well with equipments, but we want to have some ways to kind of protect our equipped creatures. So Selfless Savior gives a little bit of protection. So I feel like just 2 copies though is pretty reasonable. A couple copies of Shadowspear, of course. We want to get some of the better equipments that we can in here. 1 mana to cast this, 2 to equip. Pretty reasonable. Giving a creature +1/+1 trample lifelink, and potentially giving your opponent's creatures hexproof and indestructible in ton of turn. All permanents, not just creatures, in case that is relevant in certain spot situations. All 4 copies here of Kor Blademaster, 1/1 double strike for 2 mana, and equip warriors you control have a double strike. Seasoned Hallowblade, just fantastic creature all around. 2 mana, 3/1. Discard a card to give it indestructible until end of turn. You do have to tap this. So obviously against instant speed removal, it definitely loses a step because your opponent could target this with their removal before you go to combat. And you have to choose if you want to keep it alive and then discard to give it indestructible, but then you'll tap it before you actually get to attack in with it. So sometimes it can be definitely a little bit of a downside. You kind of have to pick and choose when it's actually worth saving or not. But, with these aggro-style lists, you typically have lands you can discard and things like that. 2 copies of Sejiri Shelter, speaking of lands. It's a white mana source. It can also be saved up as an instant speed to give your creature protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So it's another way for you to protect your creatures from spot removal. All 4 copies of Kargan Intimidator works extremely well with the Warrior synergy. 2 mana, 3/1, not bad. Cowards can't block warriors. You can pay 1 to give any of these 3 modes once per turn. You give a +1/+1 until end of turn. Make any creature become a coward until end of turn, and you can give a warrior trample until end of turn. 2 copies here of Relic Axe. Want to run more copies, but I feel like just 2 copies is fine. Want to make room for Shadowspears and some other stuff like that, so ended up just cutting it down to 2 single copies. At the end of the day, it's not the most amazing equipment, but it is still pretty solid, and of course works great with the Warrior synergy here because it's a 2 mana to cast and equip, but of course it equips when it is cast. And if it's a Warrior, it gets +2/+1. Otherwise, it just gets +1/+1 on that creature. We do have a couple creatures, obviously our Selfless Savior and then one other one we're about to get to that are not warriors. All 4 copies of Maul the Skyclaves. This is probably one of the better equipment you can be running that's not Embercleave or Shadowspear, maybe even a little bit better than Shadowspear in some ways. 3 mana, give a creature +2/+2 flying and first strike. That's pretty fantastic. 4 copies of Skyclave Apparition. It's a creature that we can equip. Obviously not a warrior, it is a core spirit, but we get to exile something on our opponent's side, mana cost 4 or less, so it kind of fits with our aggressive game plan. We don't really want to see the permanents that are, 5, 6, 8 mana, you know what I'm talking about. We don't want to get to that point of the game where your opponent's doing stuff like that. It's actually going to affect us. We want to kill them before we get to that point, so hopefully Skyclave Apparition will kind of help us fill that bill, get rid of something, and if your opponent's playing lots of removal, then you at least have your Skyclave Apparition that you can kind of equip and hopefully get in that way. Just 2 copies here of Akiri, Fearless Voyager, 3 mana, 3/3 warrior. And whenever you attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, draw a card. So that's not for each attacking creature, that's just a single instance, single trigger to draw a card for however many warriors are attacking that are equipped. And you can pay 1 to unattach into equipment to give your creature indestructible until end of turn. 4 copies of Kargan Warleader. It's kind of our warrior lord here. 3 mana, 3/3 as well, but other warriors, get +1/+1. 2 copies of Embercleave, of course, fantastic. Don't want to run too many because it is a little bit expensive. We're not super wide, but obviously we are trying to play plenty of creatures, so hopefully this will be typically will be 3 or 4 mana cost for us, typically. And 3 copies of Purphoros Intervention. Obviously scales really well for removal on creatures and planeswalkers, or could be a way to close out the game by making an X1 elemental creature token with trample and haste. 7 planes, since we are leaning towards white with most of our creatures. 6 mountain, 4 Needleverge Pathways, so it kind of gives us all the more reason to kind of keep it balanced here because the pathways can come in either side. And instead of the temple, which is always tapped, we're going to play the Fabled Passage, which can be untapped once it's our 4th land. So at least has a little bit of upside to come in untapped in the later stages of the game. Maybe make it easier to equip something or do multiple things per turn. Sideboard here, we got a couple of fight as one just against the removal heavy matchups. 2 giant cures for the bigger threats. Questing Beast, Elder Gargoyle, things like that. Just one Soul Guide Lantern here. Wanted some Graveyard interaction, but I feel like just one piece is probably as much as we want to run in an aggressive style list. 2 Cinderclasms to kind of deal with the Scoot Swarms and whatnot. Obviously, we can kind of play around this a little bit with some of our creatures and our Lord effects and whatnot. 2 Scorching Dragonfires for rogues and other really aggressive matchups. Banishing Lights just for some nice utility removal, and for like mill type strategies, we got a couple Phoenix and a couple Elspeth, Sons, and Nemesis. Alright, that's the deck. We'll jump into some games. Alright. Up against Craption Pants 666. That's quite the name. All of our Purphoros interventions here and Akiri, but no equipments as yet. But we do have a white and a red source and a fantastic Hallowblade here. So we're going to run that out. Start with a basic mountain, just in case, give yourself more options on the pathway, in case you want to lean towards playing it one way or the other. Turn 1, Duress. So just discard Liliana discard pile. I always find it amusing when people take so long, like, okay, you get to see my hand the rest of until I cast everything or something else happens. There's only one option to take. It's all 3 copies of the same thing, just pick one. Oh, Demir Control running main deck Duress. Obviously with Adventures around, Duress is a pretty medium card. Wow. Well, we can't kill it, so we're just going to swing it. Up against the good old mutations. Should be fun. Duress and mutate. And you still have room for things like Mysterious A, which are pretty subpar typically. The Hemophage. The Draw and Discard. Well, we could just be stuck on 2 lands here, and yep. Well, Hemophage is naturally a 3/3, but of course they get the counter from the egg. They got the little fairy. Not a very good card, but Duress. That's so mediocre. I guess they don't have much spot removal then, so we'll go and slide the Selfless Saviors out. I think the Giant Killer should be good. If they do get a bigger threat out, we can kill it with a Giant Killer. Otherwise, if they just keep mutating on something, we'll go ahead and just tap it down with a Giant Killer in play. And then Banishing Light should be pretty reasonable as well. That's where we can kind of take out the Relic Axe, which it's a fine card, but it's definitely expendable. Definitely pretty quick to concede, because oftentimes you can just kind of see how the game is unfolding. Like, sure, technically there's a chance we could draw ourselves, out of it, find that 3rd land and then exile their dude, but on Arena in particular, just feels like the games are kind of predetermined a lot of the times. Like, your draws just kind of seem like they indicate how the game is going to unfold. And if you want to play it out, go for it. But just for me, once I kind of get a feel for how the game is going to unfold, like who it favors, so to speak, then it's just like, okay, I'm not going to sit here for 10 minutes while you dawdle around and eventually kill me. I'm just going to concede, it's not that big a deal. Just trying to have some fun, playing some magics. Missing a double white here, so 2-1 Death Touch. So we can probably discard the Apparition, since we're missing white. Don't really want to discard a Shadowspear. Oh, they don't want to trade. Okay, so they have something that they want to mutate next turn, so the Banishing Light should probably be pretty good. Unless we happen to find an untapped white source, then we can consider the Skyclave in case they have bigger mutation threats that the Skyclave can't hit. Especially with power creep, like games get out of control like so quickly. Stern Dismissal. Well, this person's playing a lot of interesting cards for what their deck is trying to do. Just go ahead and get that off the board. I mean, keeping a mutate deck off of creatures seems like a pretty reasonable plan. Crash in for 3 more. If we had like an Embercleave or something, then we'd maybe play the Hallowblade and just try to try to go wide and set up for Embercleave, but and drop the Shadowspear here because we have the extra mana, not doing anything else with it. Sea Dasher Octopus. Twice 1 is 2. Drop the Hallowblade and get in for 5, set up for lethal next turn. Ideally they'll play something big here, thinking that'll be enough to hold us back. Okay, they play their creature and then just immediately concede. Nice. Alright, much better start from us that game. Do you want the Dragonfires? Actually, the Dragonfire might be a pretty interesting card here. Especially on the I think we'll get their creatures pretty big. The Shadowspear is probably not as good. So I think on the play here, we'll probably be a little bit more controlling. Probably makes sense. We can kill our Polywog Symbiotes. They don't get that reduction and card filtering. Well, this is interesting. I'm definitely going to keep. So we're on the draw. We get to kind of see what we hit first. Okay, so that's perfect. Because we were going to be curious to play the Fabled Passage to get a red source on 2 for the Intimidator, but then we also want to maybe have a Skyclave open to us on 3. But looks like we found our answer. So we have untapped red source next turn, get on the Intimidator, and then depending on what they do, maybe just maul the Skyclaves. If we can find a 3. Third untap land. We'll definitely want to get the Intimidator down. So turn 2 Polywog Symbiotes, fantastic for them. We'll see if they can actually leverage it to their advantage. 3 toughness means we can't kill it with our intervention, so a little bit of a downside. Obviously, intervention doesn't really work great in the early turns, but a little bit later on it works fine. So they're mutating on top of the symbiote. Okay, are you actually going to attack? I'll block. I'll definitely trade an Intimidator for 2 of your creatures. A Lockmere Serpent? Oh, they just cast it for 2. Okay, I'm fine with that. I'm not sure entirely why they are. I'm fine with that as well. I mean, we haven't really seen any spot removal, so maybe we don't even need to worry about the shelter. Oh, Atris, that's cute. What is? I'm not a fan of the Polywog symbiote. It definitely can represent some pretty solid value, so. So if we want white, well, maybe we'll go red here. So we got the Sejiri Shelter in hand. I think we'll actually play that out. And just be mana efficient here with our Warleader. So I think we're just going to set up for Embercleave here in a couple turns. We just need to survive. Probably just get our Intimidator Hallowblade down next turn and hope we get a couple turns here to kind of do some stuff. Okay, got a free attack here for 3 menace. Alright, well, we have it discard fodder. Let's see, so that's 3, so this will be 3. Alright, well, they get to bounce something, that's pretty annoying. Things are definitely slipping away, but I think Embercleave, in theory, gives us a chance. I mean, we can block with the Hallowblade just to soak up some damage here. I'm assuming they're going to attack. And they're down to just 2 cards in hand, so maybe the cards in hand aren't great. Could also double block. Actually, it might be worth just killing this mutation. I do have 2 mana open. We're still doing 6 damage. So, sure. You get a bunch of life. We soak up quite a bit and get your biggest threat off the board. Oh, that's awkward. We have 4 mana, so we only get to do one thing this turn. I guess we just play the Kargan Warleader. Hit for 4. So kind of chip away at their life total again. But this Atris is definitely giving them a nice clock. But with this Embercleave, we definitely have a chance. Okay, so they do set up with the Lockmere Serpent. We don't really care about our graveyard, but they will be able to cast that here pretty soon. I mean, they're not attacking. Man, if we found a 5th land, that would be amazing. But I think we just crash in for 6. So we're getting back down to 20. So they can flash in this Lockmere Serpent, but doesn't have flying or reach. Okay, they just fired it off at sorcery speed like a boss. Sack some swamps. It's crazy that you gain a life. Typically in black you lose a life when you draw a card, but you gain a life with the Serpent. I guess since you're sacrificing the swamp, they want to figure losing life is maybe a little bit too much. Okay, didn't really find anything apparently, so they're going to draw again. Or they just want to take full advantage of their resources. I definitely would have attacked there if I were them. Well, that's interesting. Well, we could just go for Embercleave. There's definitely a chance they... I don't think we kill them. Let's see, 7, 14, 17 maximum. So, yeah. We have enough white sources to Apparition and Blademaster, so I think just get in for 12 is a little bit better instead of Embercleave next turn. Well, it doesn't matter too much, but I think we'll bounce the egg. And give our Hallowblade double strike. And since they don't have a spot removal, I think we'll just trust we will not have to discard. And then we should win, be in a position to win with Embercleave next turn. So they're representing 10 on. So they take 2. Well, we're gonna discard just to keep it alive. Still think having a wider board state is a little bit better, but maybe that wasn't worth it there. And they're down to 8. We still have double strike and flying on this, and they don't really have any way to deal with it. Can you push an extra point of damage across here? So they're just using the Serpent just to flex here, or do they have some kind of a strategy? They seem pretty light on removal. I mean, Feed the Swarm is the only removal we've seen in these games. It's a nice versatile piece of removal. But yeah, definitely not attacking with Atris. Definitely cost them. I think they were a little too conservative there with the Menace. I definitely think they should have just been crashing in and just pressuring our life total, because we would have obviously had to plan things a little bit differently. Just crashing for 7, hoping they survive this turn. I mean, 2 cards in hand, definitely possible. Well, we're gonna go all in. I mean, the Serpent's gonna kill us next turn if we don't do anything. So we got 6 double striking in the air, unless they have some kind of a trick up their sleeve. Feed the Swarm is a sorcery, so if that's their primary piece of interaction, it's not going to cut it. Okay. Yeah, they got us here. We can't equip, so they had the Stern Dismissal. I guess they drew into it, or maybe they just had it and were hoping for better options. Yeah, well, good game. Super close, but they found their right interaction at the right time. So pretty close game. We definitely had a chance there. Maybe keeping the Embercleave was just the better play, and just letting the Hallowblade die. But then they would have bounced something else. Although the way they were playing at sorcery speed there, could have been able to play around it. But I don't know. You're just kind of hoping your opponent plays suboptimally just to squeak out a win. Not really the best strategy there. You have to kind of hope your opponent is capable of playing, you know, Stern Dismissal and things like that. The in-speed interaction at the right time. Yeah. Mutate. Give it a go here. Gonna drop the passage here. Doesn't really matter. We have double pathways. Just grab a mountain, I guess. So draw one. It's fine. Get the Intimidator down. If they want to use removal on that, that's fine. Don't want to play the Hallowblade on 2 and then have to discard like every time. That can be pretty backbreaking. When you have to start discarding on turn 2. Wow, they passed that super quick. Definitely a little suspicious. Well, we're going to pump it up. Okay, so they don't have anything here. Thought they were very sneaky about maybe auto passing there, but Apparently they did not actually have anything in Dimir colors. Rogues, removal, eliminate, not a card that sees a whole lot of play anymore. And here I think I'm just going to go for a wide, and hope that the eliminate is a sign they don't have a board wipe. So we have the land we can discard here for the Hallowblade if it's a destruction spell, but obviously Extinction Event just kind of ends our game here. Without any equipments, the Blademaster is pretty medium. It's kind of an interesting card to see this stage. Running main deck Farika's Libation. Well, we'll save the land for discard fodder for the Hallowblade, and we'll save the Apparition and Intervention for future considerations. Wow, 2 eliminates. What kind of animal is running eliminate instead of Heartless Act? And such. I'm gonna hit for 3. Alright, we'll just keep everything in hand. Ashiok. Are they gonna make a token here, or are they gonna bounce something? They're making a token. Well, that kind of ends their day. Let's make a 4-1. So yeah, intervention coming in pretty clutch there. Opponent waits all that time just to concede. Like, you're pretty much dead no matter what there. So, no idea what the Naiad is about. Like, what? Okay. Ashiok is pretty annoying, so I'll probably want some Banishing Lights to kind of help us deal with that. Didn't see any mill from them. We're going to have some spot removal. We saw quite a bit of spot removal, obviously, so probably want the Fight as Ones, get the Selfless Savior in, and yeah, take out the Shadowspear. It's not as relevant or important in this matchup, especially if your opponent kills everything. It's kind of hard to find creatures to equip when they're all eliminated. And they auto-concede. Okay. Alright, well, Boros Warriors. Let's see if we can get one more actual game in. Something that's not Dimir colors would be nice. And some Mars 42. We have lands and we have removal, so we'll give it a go. Try them. Oh, perfect. Uncrack the passage. Grab a white source. Riddle form. Playing 120 teamer riddle form. Seems pretty effective, yeah. Well, play out the Intimidator. Probably have a shock or any number of ways to deal with it, but we can apparition the riddle form. It's any non-land, non-token permanent. So that's what makes riddle form so good. It's difficult for a lot of decks to deal with, as it's a enchantment that becomes a 3/3 creature. So you get to stomp us and make a 3/3. Dude, you're playing a 120 card deck and you draw like this synergy. That's pretty silly. So when I say the shuffle order is rigged, that's kind of what I'm thinking of. Is like How do you synergize these spells so consistently? It's like, come on, dude. Apparition and Savior here. Sprite Dragon just a 1/1 for now, but obviously can get out of control. Alright, crash in for 2. Starting to pressure our opponent's life total. If they find an untapped land, they can Bone Crush our Giant, obviously. They do. Oh, they have to pay 3 life, though. And they go for the Midnight Clock against aggro deck. You have board wipes in your... I mean, they're playing 120 cards, so... You know, who knows what they're doing? They're just a random pile. We're just seeing part of their deck. Yeah, go get your midnight counter. You got it, bro. Well, we got a pretty big intervention coming up, so that's pretty cool. Right now we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, X5. Depending on what they do here, we might just do that and have lethal on board. You have Bone Crusher Giant, but you're choosing not to play it. So they have something they want to get in here. We don't really have any warriors in play. We can pump up their Kargan, but we'll just attack. We're not going to give them anything to counter or anything like that. We're just going to make them do something. Cinderclasm? Let's see, they're both 2/2s, so this doesn't really matter. Can block our Warleader, I guess. It's the first time I've ever had Cinderclasm used against me in such an effective manner. Just, this card nobody really plays. And they're main decking it. They're a genius over there. It's always fun getting blown out by cards that nobody plays. I mean, we were sitting pretty there. We knew they had something, but definitely not expecting that. I mean, we just drew into our apparitions and none of our warrior synergy. So, I mean, Cinderclasm was... If we had warriors out, obviously we'd have a much different situation. But unfortunately, we just drew our non-warrior creatures to go with our warrior lord. So... I still have mana to Bone Crusher Giant as well. Alright. I think we just get that off the board. Just don't even give them an opportunity. I'll just kind of hope for the best. So we put them down to 6, but we're not representing lethal just yet. They do have 4 cards in hand. Person just drew everything they needed. Beautiful. That's always fun. Like, you're 120 cards and you just drew like exact cards for the matchup. Come on, dude. That's just so cheesy. That is just so cheesy. So cheesy. Their deck's kind of all over the place, so I'm like, what are we even worried about here? I mean, Embercleave would be amazing, just kill them before they could find anything. I mean, you're main decking Storm's Wrath with Bone Crusher Giants and Sprite. Like, dude, what is this nonsense, man? You're playing your main deck and your sideboard all in one 120 card deck. And everything just sequenced perfectly for you. Like, if I get stuck on lands, that's not the shuffler being rigged. But shit, but stuff like that is like, come on, dude. That's so cheesy. That's super cheesy. I'm not really sure what we want to bring in. I guess the Banishing Lights. Like, why are you playing all these like aggro creatures with board wipes? Like, not only Storm's Wrath but Cinderclasm, and they get paid off for doing it too. It's just I don't get it. I just don't get it. these 120 card piles, 200 card piles, it's like, it's always that way too. Like they either draw like perfect cards and everything goes like amazing. Well, they're obviously holding like a stomp or something here, so we'll just play Shadowspear. Or they just draw like crap and do nothing. Like neither option is fun. Wow, they do not have an answer. Well, we'll take the Blademaster Shadowspear. So far, looks like our opponent has nothing, but they had everything in game one, so we'll see. Seeing what kind of deck they were. It's kind of annoying that they're just holding all this mana open. You know, they probably have stomps and other easy burn spells that they could deal with. Double opt. They're not even running the good opt. This little M21, is that the Dominaria one? Well, now we're representing lethal. If they're not going to deal with our Blademaster, but they could just go untapped and do Storm's Wrath. Could have a bounce effect, a petty theft. Into the Royal. Certainly feasible in a Sprite Dragon build. Yeah, I mean, there you go. Like, game one, they had absolutely every perfect card. And game two, they did literally nothing. And that's why these 100, 200 card piles are just not fun to play against. Like, either you just randomly draw perfect answers, or you do absolutely nothing. It's just... I mean, if that's fun for you, awesome, but I can only speak for myself. I don't know, maybe you guys are the ones that play those decks. Maybe you can tell me if there's something that you enjoy about that particular play style or whatever. So definitely with these lands and this matchup, definitely want to hold on to the Sejiri Shelter. It's a lot of lands. I think with all the lands, actually, we'll go ahead and run out the Hallowblade. I'm going to play out these basics first. That can kill everything in our deck, pretty much, so let's get that off the board ASAP. And not even give them an opportunity to have something or not have something. Really? Bubble Snare, dude, in your Sprite Dragon build? Come on, man. That's so cheese. I mean, this could be a decent sideboard card. I don't know about Bubble Snare in particular, but there's Frogify and things like that that are pretty reasonable if you're looking to kind of get around. So they play around the Hallowblade perfectly. Oh, we will have Sejiri Shelter open to us next turn, and with Hallowblade out, we'll probably just leave the Pathway in hand. Oh, we'll see what we draw. If it's another land, then obviously that'll make things a lot easier. But do need to aware of you know, those board wipes and whatnot. Oh, it is another land. So we'll play on white. Shadowspear up our Hallowblade. Or try to. I mean, discarding and casting is the same thing. Hoping to save that for the Intimidator, but of course they had, you know, answers as usual. Four cards in hand, 4 mana, wide open. Opponent definitely has some options here. Actually, pro red. That way we don't have to tap it. We can just crash in for 4. And I flash in a creature and do nothing. So basically, instead of having like a disciplined 60 card deck, they just kind of threw in all the is-it spells that kind of work with this general theme. And some sideboard tech, you know, Midnight Clock versus the Mill, and said, you know what, I'm going to play all the cards. Opponent at 14, and they decide it's worth attacking for 1 there. They do have 2 mana open because the Midnight Clock does represent ramp. Well, we're trying to keep our lands to a bare minimum so we don't flood out because we're trying to be the aggressive deck, but here we are, 21 lands. We have more lands than our opponent. Alright, opponent playing the annoying dot deck over there. Bouncing all of our stuff, tapping our stuff down. Oh, it's definitely worse seeing stuff like this than like actual destroy effects. It's like, especially when you're running Hallowblade, you can always play around those types of things, but you can't play around what they're doing. Tapping out for Salundi Vision. We get an Experimental Overload. Alright, well they can fire that off next turn and get an opt back. Make a 4/4. Oh, they don't have opt, that was last game. Yeah. Really? They're gonna go to attacks first and then cast it. At 11 life, you'd rather Sea Dash or Octopus than get a big old experimental overload token? I mean, it'd be a 3/3. But I guess they're aware that we can tap their stuff down. They just want to get some card draw and maybe find some removal for what we got going on. Of course, they have removal in their graveyard. They actually had 4 mana open thanks to the clock. So again, I'm just not quite sure what opponent is doing here. They got something in hand. I mean, our deck's pretty straightforward, so we're attacking. We're turning them sideways. Alright. Well, opponent's got all the answers here. Again, just save the land just in case. And we got them down to 7. We're slowly pressuring their life total. From what we've seen, it seems like they're playing their deck pretty well, so definitely props to the opponent for that. It's so frustrating having these bounce effects and all these things that, you know, we got the Hallowblades to kind of play around you know, removal, but we can't really do much about, you know, these enchantments and bounce effects. It's pretty annoying and hard for us to play around. The fire prophecy back, kill the Intimidator. Yeah, so we can't activate its ability. I guess to be fair, I mean, there's a lot of redundant type effects in Is It Colors, but I mean, it's kind of weird that they're drawing these types of effects rather than like their burn effects, so we can kind of play around some more. Well, we gained 4, hit them for 3. Well, they're pretty close to stabilizing here. Sea Dasher on the Fairy Vandal is the perfect combination. I mean, how often do you get to pull that off? That's pretty insane. Down to 1 mana. Obviously, warriors are pretty susceptible to you know, efficient removal like this, especially when it's like lots of it. Oh, please don't have anything here. Please don't have anything here. Oh, man. They really made us work for that one. Oof. Is it? Man. All those lands, like, come on, dude. We're running 21 lands. We shouldn't be flooding out like that hardly at all. Meanwhile, opponents is drawing like perfect answers for our like Hallowblades, so we can't even like play around their you know, removal. Like, come on, dude. All right, get some more gems here, but hey, we do get the wild card. Nice, nice. So yeah, Boros Warriors. It's a fun deck. Obviously not super competitive. It's I mean, the Intimidator is nice, the Hallowblade is nice, but these 1 toughness creatures are just so susceptible to spot removal. Blademaster, I mean, they died at like every single piece of removal. Spike Field Hazard, Shock, everything. So we need to play some protection, but then you play too much protection and you're not like pushing your advantage with like Maul of Skyclaves and things like that. And you're not always going to draw the Maul, or sometimes you want to combine that with other effects, so we need to make room for some Relic Axes. But, you know, you can't play too many. Mostly you just kind of need like things like Embercleave to kind of help you get there. So maybe even if you want to make this even more competitive, maybe just cut the Relic Axes and just run all 4 Embercleaves and just, you know, either you draw Embercleave and you kill your opponent on like turn, you know, 4 or whatever, or your opponent just finds removal and then you just concede and move on to the next one. Maybe that's just the way to go. I always like to just kind of build like more balanced decks that kind of have some range to, you know, they don't have to win by a certain turn, you know, so you can kind of do more things and just kind of more slow, casual, kind of fun style decks. But yeah, I mean, if you're just in casual matches, Voyagers is super fun. It's super sweet to get all these enchantments down. Apparition definitely gives this deck a nice dimension here with a creature that can be equipped, obviously, but it's also removal at the same time. So it's kind of like a Ravenous Chupacabra, if you're familiar with that one. But obviously, only costs 3 mana. It is double white, but you know, thanks to things like the pathways, makes it very easy to cast, and hopefully we'll continue to get better lands. Better land support, but pathways are pretty reasonable, especially with what our deck is trying to do. I've never really felt like I was too you know, hurt by going one way or the other, and then, you know, later on I wish I had the other. Obviously, Embercleave is double red and the Apparition is double white, so every once in a while it's a little bit. But yeah, we do have the 21 lands plus the 2 Sejiri Shelters, so we're you know, up to 23, which is like a little bit tight in my estimation, since we do have these, you know, 3 drops we want to get to here as well. You don't want to flood out, so definitely don't want to go really higher than, definitely don't want to go any higher than that, but I'm not sure if I want to go any lower. I feel like if you go cut that 1 land, then you'll just be stuck on like 2 lands like every single game. Seems like it's typically how it goes with the shuffler. Somebody doesn't always know how to handle the lands. Yeah, I don't know about Cinderclasm, but Swarm is just such of a problem. Like you see it so often. You need some way to kind of deal with that, even though it seems kind of counterintuitive. Obviously, we do have Banishing Lights and Dragonfires as additional ways to deal with that, so maybe we don't need Cinderclasm. But man, those tokens just get so out of control if you aren't able to deal with them. That I feel like we need some kind of effect like this, and we can still kind of play around it. And obviously, rogues are such a huge menace as well, if you will. So having this little instant speed interaction to go with some of these kind of anti-mill type effects, seem like they're pretty helpful. You know, Giant Killer, since our creatures are a little bit smaller, feels like this is a little more important to have this instead of like a Drannith Magistrate, which is kind of a pretty solid sideboard option. And there's just so many removal heavy decks that having this more protection in the form of fight as one feels pretty important. But then you can't forget other people running escape and things like that. So you know, want some room for Soul Guide Lanterns and things like that out of the sideboard. But yeah, if things kind of fall into place and you can kind of have some nice casual matches, this deck's pretty powerful. It's definitely fun to play. And yeah, definitely feel like Warriors definitely has a chance to be a strong deck in the coming months. So definitely want to try to get a feel for it now, and so when that day comes, we'll kind of be ready for it. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, make sure you jank with